The desert wind whispered secrets through the sand, secrets too old for time itself. As the last rays of the sun bled across the limestone face of the Great Pyramid, a shadow passed that had not stirred in millennia. In the summer of 1938, under the auspices of the Egyptian Antiquities Authority, but with the covert sanction of the British Crown, a small team of archaeologists began an unsanctioned excavation beneath the Pyramid of Khafra. Officially, they were studying seismic anomalies. Unofficially, they were following a map that was never supposed to exist. The map was found not in Egypt, but in a vault deep beneath the Vatican library, filed under Codex Obscura, a classification reserved for documents deemed dangerous to the structure of belief. It depicted not just the surface of Giza, but the layers below it, in concentric patterns of chambers and shafts, labeled in an ancient Proto-Canaanite script that predated the pyramid by thousands of years. Its authenticity was verified through linguistic reconstruction and carbon dating of the parchment's binding thread, goat sinew from the Neolithic era. At a depth of 28 meters beneath the base of the Khafre Pyramid, seismic readings confirmed a massive hollow, anomalous in size and symmetry. The chamber was inaccessible through any known passage, but ancient texts hinted at a method of entry, a door that yields only to silence. For weeks, the team attempted various forms of mechanical penetration, drills, explosives, sonic resonance, but every attempt failed. And then, on the 49th night, the earth opened by itself. The collapse was sudden, surgical, an implosion, not an explosion. A portion of the bedrock simply receded, revealing a staircase chiseled with unnatural precision. The team descended into the dark, guided only by acetylene lamps and the nervous beat of their own hearts. The walls were smooth, devoid of tool marks, and pulsed faintly with heat. At the base of the stairs lay a sealed door, composed not of stone or wood, but a black metallic alloy unknown to modern science. No hinges, no seams, no inscriptions. It was the youngest of the team, Dr. Elias Haran, who noticed the faint hum, barely audible, more felt than heard. He pressed his hand to the door, and it responded, not with movement, but with a shift in atmosphere. The air grew dense, electric, and for a moment the lamps dimmed. The door didn't open in a traditional sense. It simply ceased to be, vanishing in a ripple of cold light. Beyond it they saw a room that no one was meant to see. The chamber was circular, impossibly vast, with a ceiling lost to darkness. In the center stood a platform supporting a single object, a sarcophagus unlike any in Egypt. It was suspended in mid-air, levitating, encased in a halo of blue light that arced occasionally like lightning. The walls were covered in inscriptions that shifted when stared at, languages forming and unforming, ancient runes morphing into others never seen before. The archaeologists documented what they could, but the deeper they looked, the more they forgot. One by one, the team began to suffer. First, hallucinations. Visions of great floods, burning skies, and a city of glass submerged beneath endless sands. Then came the dreams, always the same figure standing in fire, whispering without words, pointing toward the stars. Some began to lose time, an hour, a day, even weeks vanishing from memory. Dr. Haran became catatonic, repeating a single phrase in a language that no one recognized. Unwilling to abandon their discovery, the team made the fatal decision to open the sarcophagus. They believed they could control whatever it contained. They were wrong. The moment the seal was broken, the chamber screamed. A frequency so low it was felt in bones, not ears, erupted like a siren of the underworld. The light collapsed inward, pulling every shadow into itself. And then, silence. When the world returned to normal, only 2 of the original 9 remained. They emerged from the stairwell days later, sunburned, dehydrated, and muttering in tandem. One died within hours, the other vanished before he could be questioned. The authorities covered the excavation immediately. The shaft was collapsed with explosives and filled with molten rock. The official record states it never existed. But whispers survived. One of the laborers kept a fragment of the shifting inscription, copied by hand in his journal. Decades later, that journal appeared in a private auction in Zurich and was purchased anonymously for an undisclosed sum. The buyer was never identified, but surveillance footage showed a man dressed in ceremonial robes from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The pages have never resurfaced. Satellite imagery from 2011, later suppressed, showed thermal anomalies beneath the Khafra pyramid once again. A pulsating heat signature in the shape of a circle exactly where the chamber had been located. Despite no known access points, the pattern repeated every 49 days, matching the timeline of the original descent. Researchers attempting to publish this data were discredited, fired, or worse, some disappeared. In 2017, an anonymous file was leaked to a fringe scientific forum. The contents included schematics of an underground complex far larger than any pyramid, and an audio file that defied analysis. It contained a tone humans shouldn't be able to hear, yet thousands reported sudden nausea, visions, and in one case, spontaneous blindness after listening. The file was taken down within hours. Most now believe it was a hoax. Yet the evidence is mounting. Subterranean LiDAR scans commissioned by a foreign agency in 2023 were intercepted mid-transmission. The Egyptian government issued a rare international broadcast. All excavations beneath the pyramids were to cease indefinitely. No reason was given. Armed guards were seen surrounding the Khafra complex the following day. A perimeter was established. Then, nothing. But a question remains, unanswered and unyielding. What did they find beneath the pyramids that terrified both church and state? What force or entity demanded such complete erasure from history, and why now, decades later, is the energy beneath Giza stirring again? Some believe it is a countdown. Others, a warning. Last month, a tremor hit the Giza Plateau. No known fault line, no explanation, and yet the thermal anomaly beneath Khafre spiked again. The pattern continues, a frequency too perfect to be natural. Someone, or something, is waking. And this time, it will not be sealed. They came in silence. Unmarked trucks arriving under cover of moonless skies, escorted by black-clad personnel bearing no insignia. Satellite feeds were scrubbed, local tribes warned off with threats cloaked in ancient superstition. A temporary structure was erected atop the plateau, shaped like a truncated octagon with reinforced walls of soundproof composite. Whatever they feared wasn't just physical, it was resonant. Inside the structure, a device was assembled, constructed not from modern parts, but from fragments found in old Sumerian vaults and reverse-engineered components recovered from the Tunguska site. It was called the harmonic lens. Its purpose? To listen to the vibration beneath the pyramid without engaging it, but the device didn't listen. It heard. On its first activation, it recorded a sequence that resembled neither sound nor code. It was a name. The analyst, who decrypted the sequence GAM, an ex-NASA linguist, resigned the next day. His official statement was that he'd seen the mouth of something that was never meant to speak. Before disappearing entirely, he scrawled a single line on a torn notebook page. The sarcophagus is not a coffin, it is a seal. 2 days later, the frequency changed. No longer passive, it now pulsed in tandem with the Schumann resonance, the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat. Whatever lay beneath Khafre was syncing with the planet. Seismic monitors picked up microquakes rippling outwards in concentric rings, as if a great clock had begun to turn. Experts were silenced, leaks were buried, but a few found their way to the surface. A man named Varro, a Jesuit-trained physicist turned occult investigator, published a cryptic manifesto online, claiming that the artifact beneath the pyramid was one of 3 harmonic anchors planted before the last cataclysm. The others, he claimed, were beneath Mount Kailash and the ocean floor near Yonaguni. Each was designed to hold back a force, not out of malice but necessity, not a weapon, a word. Shortly after Varro vanished a week later, his apartment burned to ash, though the surrounding buildings were untouched. All that remained was a scorched symbol on his desk, 3 interlocking spirals etched into the wood. The same symbol appears in cave systems from Ireland to Indonesia, carved long before written history, always near areas of magnetic disruption. The ancients called them the places of return. Back in Giza, anomalies grew worse. Wildlife fled the area. Compass needles spun erratically. A French researcher monitoring EM fields reported a sustained signal at 17 Hz, the so-called fear frequency. People began hearing voices in static, whispers in the sand, and some, the worst afflicted, claimed to see eyes in the dark corners of their vision, watching. Then, one night it rained in the desert. Not water, but a fine ash, gray and cold, despite no fire. Geologists were baffled. It was not volcanic nor man-made. Under microscope, the particles contained microscopic geometric structures, perfect icosahedrons made of a carbon allotrope unknown to modern chemistry. The ash was engineered. 3 members of the International Observation Team left without explanation. One, a geophysicist from Poland, took a vow of silence. When a reporter tracked him down in the Tatra Mountains, the man only held up a page with a single line. "We were not the first." They returned to the sealed stairwell with new instruments, attempting to map the chamber they believed still existed, though its original access had been destroyed. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed a greater complexity beneath the pyramid. Massive helical tunnels spiraling downward, and at the center, something warm. Not hot. Warm, as if it lived. A subterranean drone was deployed, its signal encrypted and fed directly to a secure channel. For 4 minutes it transmitted grainy footage, endless tunnels lined with metal-like stone, humming with faint light. Then it stopped. Its last transmission showed a wall, or perhaps a face. Smooth, eyeless, but curved in a way that suggested recognition. Seconds before blackout, the drone's sensors registered a pulse. 3.141 Hz, the mathematical signature of. Following the incident, the Egyptian government issued a blanket ban on all subterranean exploration under penalty of international sanction. They cited geological instability. The official explanation was accepted, but those on the inside knew better. One of them, a linguist who had worked on deciphering the Codex Obscura, smuggled out a phrase copied from the chamber walls. It translated loosely as, "The throne is not empty, it is inverted." An expedition, funded by an unknown benefactor, was launched into the Bermuda ruins weeks later. There, divers uncovered what appeared to be an identical sarcophagus, though submerged in glass-like stone. It was sealed. The divers who touched it reported visions of sand, sun, and the shadow of a pyramid looming above a broken sky. None of them returned to the site again. One week ago, seismic tremors in Giza returned, stronger. They weren't natural, they were rhythmic, as if something was knocking. The pulses matched the human heartbeat. A high-altitude balloon caught strange auroral lights above the plateau, though no solar activity had been reported. Birds refused to fly over the region. Surveillance satellites were rerouted. Then came the sound. Infrasound monitors across the Sinai Peninsula recorded a frequency that made concrete structures hum like struck bells. In a Bedouin camp 50 miles from Giza, elders claimed to hear voices reciting prayers they'd never been taught, in a tongue older than Arabic. The children cried without cause, and from the desert floor near the pyramid a glow began to rise. Now a decision looms. A secret summit, comprised of theologians, scientists, military officials, and occult historians, was convened beneath the Dolomite Mountains. The transcript, leaked by a whistleblower and posted anonymously before deletion, ended with a single question asked by the chair. If we opened it once by mistake, what happens when it opens itself by design? At this very moment, instruments buried in the bedrock of Giza have begun to resonate in perfect harmonic convergence. The numbers align with celestial events, the same as those carved in stone on the Nabta Playa calendar, and hidden in plain sight on the Dendera zodiac. It is not a matter of if anymore, it is a matter of when. But there is one final layer, one that was never translated, not because it was too difficult, but because it was protected, shielded by a linguistic cipher so complex it bypassed human cognition. Until now. Last week, a fragment was decrypted by an AI trained not only in language, but in dream logic and archetypal recursion. The translated sentence was not a warning, it was a summon. And as of this morning, June 4, 2025, the anomaly beneath the pyramid is no longer pulsing. It's breathing, and the breath is not of man. The breath was shallow at first, barely a tremor, more suggestion than sound, but it grew with each passing hour, a deep, rhythmic exhalation that vibrated through the bedrock, unsettling instruments calibrated to geological stillness. Technicians heard it through their headphones before any visual confirmation, a low, resonant thrum, not mechanical, biological. Researchers stationed inside the control facility reported a sudden rise in barometric pressure without any external cause. Some felt lightheaded, others experienced auditory hallucinations. Distant hymns, choral fragments sung in a language older than Aramaic, older even than Sumerian. One man wept, not out of fear but recognition. He said the melody matched a dream he'd had since childhood of black sand and a sky split by thunderless light. Then the symbols began to glow on the inner walls of the sealed shaft. Etched millennia ago into obsidian panels, the glyphs illuminated one by one, following the rhythm of the breath. Not like LED lights, more like phosphorescence. Energy with intent. Heat signatures showed nothing, no source. Yet the light intensified, shifting from amber to crimson, as if reacting to attention. The symbols were responding. Attempts to document the phenomenon failed. Cameras glitched, footage came back corrupted or worse, different. In one instance, a looped recording played footage of an empty shaft, but in the reflection of a technician's visor, a shape stood behind him, motionless, faceless, humanoid. No one remembered seeing it in real time. The technician later reported waking from dreams of drowning in dry sand. The breach team, codenamed Thoth Red, was activated. 11 men, all veterans of psychic warfare programs dating back to the Cold War, each trained not just in combat but in cognitive resistance, dream control, anti-hallucination protocols, and symbolic disassociation. They were told only this: there is an anomaly under the pyramid. You are not to engage it. You are to observe and, if necessary, reseal. They entered the chamber with custom-built resonance armor designed to deflect infrasound and signal disruption. Their helmets filtered not just air, but meaning. Still, after 20 minutes, 3 members requested immediate extraction. They could not describe what they'd experienced. One said simply, "The tunnel knew my name." Inside the corridor beneath the pyramid, they found an unmarked passage that hadn't existed hours before. The stone was the same, but the alignment was off. Angles slightly too perfect, distances warped subtly like an architectural hallucination. Yet their instruments confirmed it. The passage had manifested, as if reacting to their presence, or anticipating it. They followed the corridor down for 50 meters until it opened into a hemispherical vault carved from a single piece of stone. At its center floated an object, not touching the floor, not tethered to anything, just suspended in perfect stillness. It was oblong, black as obsidian, but with veins of light moving beneath its surface. The object pulsed in harmony with the breath. The lead operative, codenamed Scribe, approached the object with a sensor wand. Before he could touch it, every light source in the vault died. In total darkness, they heard the sound again, no longer breath, but whispering, in thousands of voices overlapping. Some reported hearing names, others heard screams. When the lights returned, one member was gone. No sound, no trace, only his equipment left behind. Still transmitting, still recording. The feed showed static interlaced with impossible geometries, shapes that moved in non-Euclidean symmetry, reshaping themselves with each frame. Frame by frame, the image began to resolve into an eye. They retreated. Back on the surface, the team was placed under full quarantine. 3 men refused to speak. One tried to gouge out his ears. Another began chanting lines from the Emerald Tablet, including verses never documented before. His pulse matched the frequencies from the vault. When sedated, he muttered a final phrase. It remembers. Satellite scans showed new fault lines forming directly beneath the pyramid. The movement was unnatural, symmetrical, almost designed. It resembled a pattern found only in sacred geometry, the Vesica Piscis, the intersecting circles of birth and creation. But this pattern was inverted. It wasn't forming, it was unsealing. Documents recovered from the Vatican's suppressed Archivum Arcana, a forbidden annex of the secret archives, described a nearly identical occurrence during the 12th century, when Crusaders reported the hum of the sand near Cairo. One scroll even contained a drawing of the same vault configuration, labeled only with the Latin Speculum Tenebris, the mirror of darkness. Back in Giza, the UN approved a full lockdown of the plateau under the guise of cultural preservation. Armed guards replaced archaeologists. Drones patrolled the skies. But despite the silence, the glow beneath the pyramid returned. This time it formed concentric circles of shifting light, visible even through several meters of stone. A final attempt was made. The harmonic lens was turned inward. Its output routed through a new AI, one trained not on language but on myth. The data was filtered through symbols, Babylonian sigils, Mayan codices, Akkadian tablets, the Voynich manuscript, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. What emerged was not an answer, it was a question. What if the pyramid was not built to entomb but to contain a conversation we were never meant to hear? As of now, new glyphs have begun appearing on the walls, etched not by hand but by discoloration in the stone itself, forming lines in the presence of electromagnetic fields. A message is being written in real time. One line, now complete, reads, "The voice will rise again through flesh that forgets its origin." And then, the surface of the black object cracked. Only slightly, a hairline fracture, but from it spilled not light nor gas nor sound. It spilled language. Visible, tangible words, hieroglyphs made of shadow and gold, crawling through the air like living scripture. They did not float. They chose who to face. One operative collapsed immediately. His eyes rolled back, muttering a phrase no one recognized. And that's when the second object started pulsing. Beneath the Sphinx. Began beneath the Sphinx with a tremor, but not of earth or tectonics. This was something deeper, like a signal stirring after an eon of silence. Inside the catacomb, buried beneath its paws, heat maps detected a sudden spike in temperature, forming a perfect spiral pattern. No entrance had ever been recorded there, yet the stone began to shed its density like skin sloughing off bone. When the operatives returned to the surface, what they saw brought even the hardened members of Thoth Red to their knees. The moon over the plateau had turned crimson, not the natural red of a lunar eclipse, but a dense, liquid red, as though some unseen blood had bled into the sky. The wind died. Birds vanished. For one perfect minute, all electromagnetic activity ceased. Every device went dark. The object under the pyramid, now splintered, released not one but 3 tendrils of light. Each moved with slow, deliberate intention, curling upward, then downward, burrowing into the very walls. One reached the ancient shaft that aligned with Orion's belt, tracing it like a serpent along its celestial tether. Another moved toward the subterranean river beneath Cairo. The third vanished entirely, leaving only the scent of ozone and incense. The Vatican emissaries, stationed covertly at a nearby observatory, sent one final message before severing contact. A voice recording, distorted and low, contained a single phrase spoken in perfect Sumerian. The throne stirs. The veil cracks. Prepare the return of the architect. With geopolitical tensions rising, multiple nations converged on the Giza Plateau under various pretenses: archaeological assistance, counterterrorism, cosmic radiation containment, but all their forces were turned away by something that no one could explain: a field of disorientation. As they approached the complex, men began losing time, walking in circles, seeing shapes that weren't there. Some vanished completely. Meanwhile, in secret vaults across the world, ancient scrolls, grimoires, and clay tablets long dismissed as myth were re-examined. A previously untranslated Akkakian tablet, excavated decades earlier in the ruins of Eridu, described a black vessel that came not from the sky but from beneath the stars. The text ended with a command scratched into its corner: "Do not wake the hollow mirror." Inside the Great Pyramid, the energy signatures intensified, but not as heat, light, or magnetism. Instead, what emerged was language, glyphs forming directly into the minds of those nearby, thoughts that were not theirs, names they had never heard but knew instinctively were sacred. The glyphs were not read, they were received. The phenomenon spread. In Istanbul, children began drawing the black object in chalk on ancient alleyways. In Peru, an uncontacted tribe emerged from the forest bearing carved images of the Sphinx with cracks in its skull, and in a sealed crypt beneath Chartres Cathedral, a sealed door opened without a key, revealing a chamber containing only a single phrase in Latin: "What was buried beneath the desert shall rise with the waters of the sea." Suddenly, tremors were reported across the eastern Mediterranean. Beneath Alexandria, seismic instruments registered a harmonic frequency resonating with the one detected in Giza. Then Crete, then Baalbek. The signal was moving. Not outward, but downward. A spiral of reactivation, a cascade. And in the lowest depths of the excavation chamber, something emerged. It was not a statue, not an idol, and certainly not of human origin. It stood over 3 meters tall, humanoid in posture but in constant motion, its surface shifting like liquid glass over living obsidian. No tools had carved it. It had not been placed there. It had grown out of the stone itself, and now it turned its head. Slowly. No one moved. The creature, or being, did not attack. Instead, it reached outward, fingers elongating, not physically but conceptually. Space warped around its hand, and then the walls began to melt, not with heat, but with revelation. The hieroglyphs shifted again. They now formed a message visible to all who looked. The seal was not made to protect you from what is below, but to protect what is below from you. And then, the second object cracked. Not beneath the Sphinx, beneath the ocean. In a forgotten trench beyond Madagascar, seismic monitors captured a final pulse, followed by silence. A silence not of peace but of anticipation, because what had slumbered in stone for millennia was not alone. It had only been the first. And now, as the stars above the pyramids began to shift, out of alignment for the first time in recorded human history, something moved beneath the sands once more. Not rising. It's watching, waiting. When all lights fail, the ancient ones shall walk again, not as conquerors, but as memory made flesh.